face certain problems and you thought you were alone. Well, there's a future in this world for you beyond the things you've done. You know, people pick themselves up after being so far gone. Well, I remember you, how you used to come around, playing your guitar with a cigarette in your mouth. Everyone you came in touch with would love you, man. You were one of the most sincere people living in this town. And then you rode the High Line west. There was adventures up ahead, but you were running to from something I couldn't understand. You were only 19. You got caught up in the scene, in a city full of heroin. That's where so many roads lead. Drove to Houston hoping I would see your face again. My friend, you're so needed here. Your laughter and your smile could save somebody's life if they could hold it for a while. You got so many friends and we got nothing but love for you. You can make it through this, there's so much you can do. Down low in the truck, 3 days of bloodshed, the anger had built up. He sees gun placed on top of the seat, pointed at the face young Carlo Giulliani. And the world watched in vain at the pictures on the screen, at the beatings and the rapes by the Caribbean. Early man to the crowd fighting back. He sees arms raised above his head. The anger swirled around until that pop pierced the wind. In vain as the bullet left its case, for a short flight into the face of Carlo Giuliani. body down. Carlo, Giulliani carries on. And there's a question that remains. Are we prepared to die for the things we want to change? Christie came from Glasgow, from the smoky miners' bars, raised on stories of Red Clydeside and the Spanish Civil War, of those brave working class guys who bled and died in Spain. Their spirit was handed down so that it might rise again. 20 years after Hitler, at the start of Vietnam, 20 years before the miners' strike, the struggle carried on, and the stories of the torture and the executions came to the miners' bars of Glasgow from the jails of Franco's Spain. Stuart, Christie, the anarchist, he heard his comrades' cries, those brave enough to fight to keep the idea alive, whose voices sounded clear through the iron, stone and brick, the echoes of the fallen dreams in 1936. Young Stuart gave the word to add his actions to the cause, with those hardened scientistas who carried on the war in the footsteps of Durruti, Ramon and Sabate. He carefully packed his bags and slipped into Franco's Spain. Christie walked the stone streets of the ghosts of Harvey, through Gothic Barcelona, thinking back before the war, how many gave their lives here in the name of liberty, who at the front and at the barricades fought proudly to be free. But how many could possibly survive the fascist tanks that stormed across the continent, pumped up by Wall Street's banks, or the bombs from the Nazis that burst under the scene, and from the hearts of the people struck the vision and the dream. Young Stuart came from Glasgow to the heart of Madrid, not coded word, not take the man who'd come down from red Glasgow to Madrid to lend his hand, who'd offered up his body as a weapon of the war, like those brave working class Scots who'd done the same before. Stuart, Christie, the prisoner, he took his place inside with the brave men and women who refused to compromise, who resisted Franco openly with weapons and with words, who'd rob the banks and set the bombs and shot the cops and soldiers. It'll take time and work to undo what has been done to the people of this planet in the name of fascism. Will we too stand to face it in the places where it counts, to pluck its fruits and find its roots and tear them from the ground? Christie came from Glasgow, from smoky miners' bars, raised on stories of Red Clydeside and the Spanish Civil War, those brave working class Scots who bled and died in Spain. Their spirit was handed down so that it might rise again. Take a trip with me in 2014 to Western Turkey in the mining country. From the biggest disaster to strike underground, and the lies of the government come back around. Just as the tear gas had cleared from the air, withdrawn out of Taksim Square, in the mine shafts of Soma the working went on, and the miners dug deeper and deeper down. Turkish miners have marched just the previous year, underground sit-ins to make themselves clear that safety conditions must change in the mines, for thousands and thousands of miners to die. Just as the bell tolled for the afternoon shift, the fire ignited and spread through the shaft. 1 mile down in the crest of the earth, and 700 miners down there. Well, the miners have trapped with no hope for escape. As carbon monoxide spread out from the flames, the bosses kept quiet, the working went on. Government sent out soldiers and cars to confront those in mind. Along came the angry with fire in their eyes, to the streets of Turkey to challenge the lies, saying don't sleep Soma, remember you're dead. And they fought with the cops and the miners' defense, and Astorius and Goffs and the Virginians too. They know what business the mine owners do, how politicians and bosses join hands, and miners are exploited again and again. It's an age-old story that keeps happening, massacre framed as an accident. Well, they'll rob and they'll murder the ones in the mines. And what now will come of these terrible times?
Дали символ от нас знамето е она što ne pravi različi. Razdeli pa Vladej, situacija koja se poskoruva. Nacija, formula za uništuvanje. Granica, formula za razjedinjavanje. Razdeli, Vladej, razdeli. Da li elektorato te naša ta jedinstvena buntovnost koja ne deli na lažne ideale i boja. Сега сме модерни, имаме демократия. Порано се борехме за слобода, сега за партия. Раздели, Владей, раздели. Drag premijere, jedno ke ti kažam, nema za tebe, ja zaglasam. Probaj da me zatvoriš, probaj da me uplašiš, sepak za tebe jas nema da glasam. Veća opozicija, moja definicija, nema sakam vas, ni vaša ta tranzicija. Ljevica, desnica, zad grbot naš raboti, dičata jas vernovi vrstite rabotnici. Drag premijere, jednake ti kažam, nema za tebe, ja zaglasam. Probaj da me zatvoriš, probaj da me uplašiš, uplačiš se pak za tebe, jaz nema da glasam. Tajna ta policija proba da me najde, no nekako jaz im izbegav. Ako ke me najdat, jaz jednake im kažam i posle ko kuće ke bidam zastralan. Zato a slobodno pukajte, nema da bidam naoružen. Slobodno pukajte, so ovi akordi bi povraćam. Raz, dva, tri i drag premijere, jednake ti kažam, nema za tebe, jaz da glasam. Probaj da me zatvoriš, probaj da me uplačiš, se pak za tebe, jaz nema da glasam. Ta policija proba da me najde, no nekako jaz im izbegam. Ako ke me najdat, jaz jednake im kažam i posle ko kuće ke bidam zastralan. Zato ja slobodno pukajte, nema da bidam naoružen. Slobodno pukajte, so ovi akordi bi povraćam. Slobodno pukajte, nema da bidam naoružen. Slobodno pukajte, so ovi akordi bi povraćam. 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 Sobota je prazna, zvone ja sam sam. Zaroben, izguben po ovoj bipolaran svet. Ne sakam da izlezam, da živejam i da osetam. Da li je jave ili son ponekogač, ja se prašuvam. Da li nekogač ke podale me raka i ke pomogne me? Da li nekogaš ki ima me troška empatija nije kon drugi te se prašuvam. Polovar svet, no da li za nego nije, se bori me. Evolucija zastana nazad po vreme, to nije se vrativ me. Zaboravih me na ona što se vika empatija. I ponekogaš jaz sebe si se prašuvam. Da li nekogaš ke podade me Живея на вересија, честно работам, за честно да живејам и да донесам храна на масата. Бевме синови и кирки на колективот, сега станавме деца на сонцето. Тогаш имав на што да се надевам, а сега стравувам да не гладувам. Честно работам за добро да живејам и не дозволувам да ме прегази светот во кој ја живејам. Честно работам за добро да живејам и не дозволувам да ме прегази светот, да ме прегази светот во кој ја живејам. Трошна куќа и црни бели дробови, тешко е да работиш во фабрика, но не се жалам и јас не плачам. Колку имам, толку и давам, давам. Колку имам, толку и давам, 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 колку имам. Честно работам за добро да живејам и не дозволувам да ме прегази светот во кој ја живејам. Честно работам за добро да живејам и не дозволувам да ме прегази светот, да ме прегази светот во кој ја живејам, во кој ја живејам.